What's up, peeps? This is Todd, and welcome back to my show. I am your favorite YouTuber's favorite YouTuber, and today we're going to talk about trickle-down economics. If that sounds good, let's hop into the video. Now, I absolutely love trickle-down economics because that means that I get all the money, and then maybe in like 10 or 15 years, you guys get some too. No, but in all seriousness, I'm going to try to stay as neutral as possible through this video, but of course, I do have a little bit of a bias because I get the benefit on the high end. But as you guys know, I am a man of the people. I'm one of the good ones. As far as people in the 1% go, I'm one of the good ones. So I will try to be as neutral as possible, present both sides, and see if any of this makes sense. Alright, here we go. So trickle-down is a theory that claims that if there's benefits for the wealthy, that eventually trickles down to everyone else. The problem is trickle-down economics actually isn't an economic theory at all. In fact, no economist of any kind came up with the trickle-down theory or has tested it. Trickle-down economics is not a real economic theory. That theory doesn't really exist. All trickle-down is a political catchphrase, and it's been backed by many people for decades. So this economic theory that really isn't a theory of economics assumes that investors, savers, and company owners who get tax breaks and get to hang on to more of their money will create jobs and stimulate growth. Investors like me will buy more companies, buy more stocks, or purchase more real estate. Basically, if the rich get tax breaks, they'll use that extra money to pump back into the economy by creating more goods, services, or products. Basically, the idea is that if the 1% gets a lot of tax breaks, we will use that money to then re-stimulate the economy. So now, this begs the question, do tax cuts actually stimulate economic growth? Well, certainly a case could be made for that, because if you have 100% taxes, there will actually be no tax revenue because there's no incentive to work. If the government's just going to come and take every penny that you earn, there's no point in you working for that at all. But you also can't have 0% taxes, because if you have 0% taxes, no revenue will be generated that way either. So the idea is that you have to find somewhere in the middle between 0 and 100. So in the past, liberal politicians have increased taxes on the wealthy, and conservative politicians have decreased taxes on the wealthy. When taxes are lowered for the wealthy people, the reasoning behind that is usually the trickle-down effect, which again is the idea that if I have to pay less in taxes, that means I'm going to be buying more real estate and investing in more companies, which will stimulate the economy. Now, trickle-down economics is also what Ronald Reagan based a lot of his tax policies off of. So Ronald Reagan was the 40th president of the United States of America. When Ronald Reagan took office, the country had been in a huge state of inflation since 1965. Economists later coined the decades leading up to Reagan's presidency as stagflation, where prices were skyrocketing even though unemployment remained high. Not only that, but economic growth was actually stalled. This damaged the US economy and also economies around the world. So Ronald Reagan came up with a plan that was later dubbed Reaganomics. Reaganomics was heavily based on the trickle-down theory. So again, if you lower taxes for corporations and investors, those entities would invest, which create more jobs and more products and services. But trickle-down economics is actually a very controversial idea. The critics of trickle-down economics argue that when you cut taxes for the rich, social programs suffer. Essentially, they're saying that if all these rich people aren't paying their fair share in taxes, that tax revenue could be going to social programs as well as improving things like roads, school, and infrastructure. Their concern is that only a handful of wealthy people at the top get even richer. The truth is, Reaganomics wasn't just about cutting taxes. Ronald Reagan employed 3 elements into his tax plan. There was deregulating business, the use of private contractors instead of government, and decreased spending on domestic social programs, including disability insurance, food stamps, and Social Security. During his presidency, Ronald Reagan signed 2 tax bills into law, one in 1981 and one in 1986. As a combined result of both of those tax bills being passed, the top tax rate was slashed from 70 to 28%. And at that time, that was actually the lowest tax rates for the rich since the 1920s. Reaganomics was highly debated, and economists still are weighing the pros and cons today. Critics also argue that Reaganomics led to a larger, not smaller deficit, and also a much larger national debt. And many say that while Reagan cut taxes for the riches while also defunding social programs was just a huge win for wealthy individuals. That did, of course, lead to an increase in wealth inequality. The two political parties are very split on this. Republicans tend to really like trickle-down economics, and Democrats usually think it's corporate greed. Democrats argue that this hurts the working and middle classes. Either way, this system remains a defining part of Ronald Reagan's presidency. So in theory, I think trickle-down economics makes a lot of sense. If people like me pay less in taxes, we will use all that extra money to to invest, to create job opportunities, to provide housing, and create other products and services through innovation. But also a case could be made that it doesn't necessarily trickle down to the poor and middle class like people think it does. As of right now, as of the time I'm recording this video, I save about 80% of my income. What that means is I found what I need to live on and I just save the rest. So if I make more money, my living expenses aren't going to go up. I'm just going to be saving 85% of my income, or 90% of my income, or 95% of my income. So when it's all said and done, I will be saving and investing a lot more money, and although investing is good, the money that I just keep for myself won't necessarily make it down to the poor middle class. Now, of course, a case can be made that if I am saving money though, I put money in a bank, that means that banks have more money to lend out, which could be used for people to start businesses or buy homes. I think the biggest glaring example of why there might be a better system than trickle-down economics is because people who are poor and people who are in the middle class, they actually spend all of their money. And this isn't a knock on poor people, by the way. I'm not even saying it's their fault. I'm just saying someone who's poor, someone who doesn't make a lot of money, they spend all of their money because they have to. Literally, all of their paycheck goes to food, housing, healthcare, and utilities. People in the middle class might not spend 100% of their income, but they probably spend 80 to 90% of it. So when you consider that, a case can be made that instead of trickle-down economics, instead, people who are in the middle class should actually get the tax breaks, because it'll be middle class folks that are actually spending their money and stimulating the economy. Now, when people who are either poor or in the middle class get tax breaks instead of the rich, that is called Keynesian economics. Now, the thing about Keynesian economics is it only works if and only if you smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm if you haven't done so already. But also, Keynesian economics, the idea that if poor people get more money, that'll stimulate the economy, that is widely debated by conservatives such as Ben Shapiro, who basically claim that if poor people get more money, they're just going to go spend it on hamburgers.
So now you're making a strong case for Keynesian economics, which is totally fine, obviously. The problem with Keynesian economics is that it doesn't even work in theory because, again, once you go to the logical extreme, which is remove all of the money from the rich people who are saving all their money and give it to all the poor people to buy hamburgers, that doesn't help the economy or spur the economy.
No matter which side you take, there is no question that trickle-down economics is a very controversial topic, and there are pros and cons to both sides. But I am not here to tell you if it is the right system or the wrong system. I'm just here to present some facts. But I would love to know what all of you guys think in the comment section. And if you guys like material like this, make sure to drop me one of these. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.